Hi everyone. So I'm wishing you a very happy new year and hope you have a great year ahead. So let's talk about 14 Pro. So I've been using this 14 Pro for over 4 months now, and I think it's a good enough time after all the updates to judge a phone. And I think it is a great phone, but I don't think it's an upgrade over 13 Pro, and I would say it's an downgrade in so many ways. Let's discuss about it. iPhone 14 Pro is a good looking phone with an amazing build, but so was 13 Pro. And if you replace the notch with the dynamic island, you can't really tell them apart. Honestly, if you use your phone in public, it is impossible to tell whether a person is using a 13 Pro or a 14 Pro. So let's start with what makes this phone apart from that iPhone 13 Pro, and that is going to be this build. And after using it for 4 months, I could easily say that I couldn't care less about it. I think I've used it 3 or 4 times at best, but I forgot about it after that. I haven't interacted with it or maybe 2, 3 times in last 4 months. There was a brief period where I could see the live activities, but somehow that isn't working for me. The live activity on lock screen feels so much better than it's on the notch, and I couldn't find a way to disable it on the dynamic island but not on the lock screen. And that was the main reason I went for the 14 Pro instead of 13 Pro, thinking about the experience will be different. It isn't. So if you're someone who's going to purchase this phone just for that dynamic island, I don't think the extra money is worth it. The second difference between 13 Pro and 14 Pro is going to be that always on display. And I really don't understand that why Apple cannot enable that on 13 Pro. See, I get it, it has the lowest refresh rate, it can go as low as 1 hertz. But the thing is, I've seen a lot of Android phones that can manage a better battery life than this phone with the constant high refresh rate on always on display. And I think even on 13 Pro with that better efficient processor and battery life, 13 Pro will get a better battery life on always on display than this phone, definitely. Apple thought, let's make the always on display different. So they made it always on. And yeah, it did not work. It was very power consuming and distracting at the same time. So with 16.2, Apple finally decided to make it just like Android. And with that clock not moving makes me worry about the OLED burn-in. So I just turned it off. So yeah, there is no upgrade as well. Now let's talk about the A16 Bionic chip. I don't usually talk about Apple processor. If you watched my previous videos, I never talk about CPU because they're always great when it comes to GPU and CPU. If you want to play games, they're always great. And that's the case here as well. It's good. But the problem is the jump between A15 to A16 is not great. Also, it is an inefficient chip. And that's the reason where I think it's a downgrade from 13 Pro. The battery life on 13 Pro and 13 Pro Max was great because of that A15. And this is an inefficient chip. And a lot of people complained about battery life when they got the phone, but they were thinking about maybe it's because of iOS 16 or maybe it's because of always on display. But that's not the case. The chip itself is not efficient at all. And I actually realized it when I got my friend a iPhone 13 Pro recently, and he's a power user by my standard. So he can usually get around 9 hours to 10 hours of screen on time over the period of one day, where I can get around 7 hours. I can stretch it to 8 hours where I'm not using the cellular at all. See, don't get me wrong, it is still great and it's much better than any Android phone I have used because I like compact phone and none of the phones in this size can compete with iPhone 14 Pro. So it's not a bad battery life, but if I compare it from 13 Pro, it's not a great battery life. And the last thing where Apple made everyone believe that they are doing something revolutionary, and that is going to be their new 48 megapixel sensor. And no, that's not the case. The biggest problem I have with this phone and that 48 megapixel sensor is going to be the close focus distance. I like to take close-up shots of the product. Now I'm not talking about macros, just close focus shot. And I was trying to take a good shot of my Apple Watch Ultra, but I got irritated. The auto switch from main sensor to macro is irritating, and I have also enabled the option where I can close it off, but there is no way to turn it off by default. So I have to do it every time. And no, Apple, I do not want your weak ass macro sensor when I really want to take a picture from that bigger sensor. I do not want to miss that bokeh. And also, when Apple advertised that the 2x shot is going to be great because it's 48 megapixel and the crop is going to be as good, it's not. You're still going to lose some details and the bokeh. So that's a huge miss for me, and that's the biggest reason I carry my Pixel 6. And if I am not taking a 3x telephoto shot, I will always prefer my Pixel phone. Even the processing I feel is a little bit better than this phone. No doubt the sensor is better, the low light quality is better. But when it comes to the actual picture, I never think about taking out my iPhone and take a picture of it. And that says something because I've spent a lot of money on this, and this is like 4 times cheaper than this phone. But when it comes to video, iPhones are great for video. So iPhone 14 Pro is great, but 13 Pro was as well. So unless you really want cinematic mode in 4K or you want to shoot 48 megapixel raw pictures, there is no reason to upgrade, and I don't think it's a huge upgrade from 13 Pro in terms of camera department. The charging isn't improved either, so you get the same charging speed with the same lightning port and the same transfer speed. So I think is the only thing I think that has been upgraded is going to be the peak brightness. That's the only thing I noticed, because other than that, I do not feel there is any reason to get this phone. There are two reasons why I'm keeping this phone. The first, I have already spent a lot of money on it. I don't want to lose that money, so I'm going to keep using that. And the second reason is I don't have to switch iPhones as soon as like Android phones, so it is going to last me at least iPhone 15 Pro. I'm not even sure whether I'm going for the Pro next year or not. So this is just a phone that I keep at home. I use my Apple Watch Ultra to take calls, and I carry my Android phone most of the time. Yes, it's not a great upgrade for me, but it's okay. It works and everything is good. It's just not worth it. See, there is no other option to get the 14 Pro. This is the only best phone you can get from Apple right now, because 13 Pro is discontinued. And if you're coming from the older generation, it makes sense to get this phone. It looks a little bit better because of the dynamic island. But if you can save some money on 13 Pro, you can get it cheaper from anywhere else. I would recommend going for that phone, and the rest of the money you can put into AirPods or Apple Watch if you want that. Or you can just save the money. I know it would be foolish for me to ask you like how was your experience, because if you're coming from iPhone 10, 11, 11 Pro, this is an amazing upgrade because you might have not 13 Pro. But if you have some other opinions where you think you actually feel the same way I feel, just let me know in the comment box. My name is Rohit. I'll see you in the next one. Till then.